Imagine spending 6 years and $60 million to build one of the most unique mega mansions in all of California, only to finish the build, have a change of heart, and say, you know what? I don't want this house anymore. I'm gonna list it for sale. Well, that's exactly what happened to Darwin Deason when he built a cliffside version of the Palace of Versailles for himself, right on the water. But I guess he's over it already. He just put the house on the market for $108 million. This guy went all out on the interiors with hand-carved stone, antique furnishings, gold leaf wall treatments. He even built himself one of California's only private beaches in his backyard. There's a few things that I actually like about this house, and then there are a whole lot of things that I absolutely hate about this house. We'll get into all of my feelings today. This property makes for one of only 2 homes in the area that are asking over $100 million, and this one is by far the most unique. A lot of the stories we talk about here on the channel are focused on more of the super modern spec homes, but trust me, you guys, even though this house isn't modern, it's worthy of a video. It's a wild one. In today's episode, let's talk about 1900 Spindrift Drive, also known as the Sandcastle. This story all began way back in 2009 when a guy named Darwin Deason sold his company Affiliated Computer Services to Xerox for over $6 billion. In that very same year, Darwin bought this home in La Jolla for $18 million along with a neighboring parcel of land that he paid another $8 million for. Now, usually it's not a good plan to go out and spend a bunch of money after a huge financial windfall, but I guess if you sell your company for $6 billion, you can afford a little $26 million mansion. There was already a home in place here when he bought it. The original home was built actually in 2005 by a guy named Doug Manchester. Darwin kind of liked the house that was there, but he was really drawn to the property for the views, because where this lot sits, you actually have views not just west out to the ocean, but you also have pretty nice views both to the north and the south as well. The Wall Street Journal reported that Darwin significantly renovated this house after he bought it. He tore it down to the studs, plus he added a guest house that he built from scratch. And if it wasn't obvious already, most of his inspiration for the finishes came from France. Like I mentioned earlier, primarily from the Palace of Versailles. I could only assume that this was a very long and very painful renovation. Any of these bespoke style remodels are really challenging for subcontractors to pull off because they're doing a lot of work that they've never done before. But anyways, the remodel gets finished and Darwin decides, you know what? I'm not going to use this house nearly as much as I thought I was going to, so I'm going to put it on the market. I mean, he already has a house in Dallas. He's got properties in Cedar Creek. He has a house in Cabo San Lucas, and he spends a bunch of time on his yacht too, which he has named Apogee. Rough life. Now let's take a look at how this renovation turned out together, starting with the specs. It's a 10-bedroom, 17-bathroom house. It's actually a lot smaller than I would have expected based on the way it looks from the outside. It's only about 13,000 square feet. Oh my God, though. Look at this, you guys. Okay, so priced at $108 million, that puts us at $8,320 per square foot. The description calls this house La Jolla's most iconic waterfront jewel, which from this angle, like if you're looking at this house from a boat, sure, they can take that title. Getting closer to the house, when you see all these arches and columns and stuff, you definitely see that like French neoclassical inspiration. Then this next shot takes us up to that second-story deck looking back at the grounds, and this doesn't even look like a house. Like, this looks like a resort, straight up. See, this is what I meant earlier when I said that with this property, you actually kind of have views facing north and south as well as just like your straight west-facing ocean views. This is the entrance that you walk through to get to the front door, and I gotta say, for the style they were going for, they absolutely nailed it. Like, every detail looks like it's executed perfectly. The symmetry is really nice. And check it out. They don't show us a street view photo in the listing, but I wanted to show you guys this. So this is what it looks like if you're actually standing on Spindrift. It's just like a regular neighborhood, but then behind these bushes here is the property we're looking at today. So this door, I believe, is just like maybe a side access door for staff or something. And then if we just buzz up the street a little bit, here is your main entrance to the house. So of course it's gated. You get a little peek of it here from this angle. Behind that initial pedestrian gate, you're met with this courtyard area, which is very nice, nowhere to sit, but it's just a good area for your guests to kind of get warmed up to the house, I guess. This is what looks like kind of a formal living room. The furniture honestly looks a little bit crammed in here. It's not a very big room. but the views are amazing. Okay, this dining room, if I had to guess, is probably the largest concentration of money spent in one room. Like price per square foot, this room has got to be one of the most expensive rooms in the house, both for the finishes and the furnishings. Now we're on another one of those decks and we're looking down at what looks to be just like an outdoor lounging area with all these chairs. But check this out. What we're actually looking at is a fake beach here, okay? Apparently, the owner, Darwin, is not a fan of the coarse California sand. So what he did here is he spent about $40,000 to import Georgia sand that he found at the Augusta National Golf Club. And then he put that sand on this deck area to create his own beach. To me, this just looks like a litter box. Like, all the neighborhood cats are gonna have a heyday with this. Out here, even closer to the water, next to your fake beach, you have this other little like structure. It's not exactly a guest house. You can see it just services this part of the backyard. It's kind of like a bar area / kitchen. Pretty nice. And speaking of bars, we got another bar inside. And let's just take a second to appreciate all the woodwork in here. And don't worry, you got views from the bar too. I gotta say, from the outside, I'm not really getting Palace of Versailles vibes, at least with the architecture, okay? So here's the house, and then here's just one of like a million photos of the Palace of Versailles. Here's the house, and here's the Palace of Versailles. You guys see what I'm saying. The interior, on the other hand, when you look at all the furniture pieces, the artwork, the ceiling details, I could see a little bit more of Palace of Versailles vibes, I guess. Like if you guys have never been there before, here's a bunch of random images from Google just to kind of give you an idea. The real issue is that with a 13,000 square foot house, you are never going to be able to get the scale and volume that the Palace of Versailles gives you. Like that place literally has over 700,000 square feet of interior space. Kind of an impossible experience to replicate, let's be real. Here's a shot of the master bedroom. Then here are a couple of shots of the master bathroom. Now these are the rooms that I'm more drawn to. As much as I cannot stand the finishes throughout this house, this room to me is just classy. Like the black marble on the floors, the woodwork covering basically every wall. There's not an ounce of drywall in this room. This looks like a disgusting public gym that has been around for 20 years. This just feels like a Planet Fitness or something. They get into a few other random photos of like additional bedrooms in this house, additional bathrooms, some common areas and hallways and other seating areas. And then finally at photo number 35, they show us one of only 2 photos of the kitchen. Here's one and here's the other one. Usually the kitchen is the most featured part of the house and the most important part of the house, but in this house, it feels like the kitchen was a complete afterthought. It's very weird. I'd love to see a floor plan and understand what's going on here a little bit better, but this kitchen is probably the biggest miss in this house by far. Worse than the finishes, worse than the architecture. What is up with this kitchen? Now, the $1 million question here, or the $108 million question is this place really worth this much money? Well, if you look at properties sold around San Diego, there is nothing in recent comp history that sold for even over $50 million. The most expensive home sold was at 2940 Sandy Lane in Del Mar, which is a completely different area. Just to give you an idea, this house is about 30 miles north of the Palace of Versailles house that we're talking about today. Then if we flip over and look at houses that are currently for sale, we do have one other home that's priced over $100 million. But it's also a very different area. It's a countryside property sitting on 77 acres. So honestly, I don't even look at this one as a comp. Is the Sandcastle a one-of-a-kind property? Yes. But is $108 million also a one-of-a-kind price? Yes. There's just nothing around here that supports him asking anywhere near $8,000 per square foot. In my opinion anyway. Like let's look at this one for example. We're at 3 The Point in Coronado. It's about maybe 30 minutes south of the property that we're talking about today. Arguably a better location. I mean, I know I'd rather be here than La Jolla, at least myself. Anyways, they're priced at $37.5 million. It's a similarly sized home at about 12,000 square feet, which means their asking price is only $3,200 per square foot. Look at this place though. Super cool, super modern, very approachable. You got all this dock space. You're literally on the water. The views are just as good as the Sandcastle. Here's the front door. Like this is a front door that screams, I'm about to walk into an expensive house, right? Great patio space and indoor-outdoor living. The curved walls are a little bit much. I could do without those, but let's face it, this is less offensive than like a neoclassical architecture sitting right on the water. The pool's small, but it's one of those raised pools that has like the negative edge on it, so that's pretty cool. Very grand spiral staircase, clean modern dining room. Got a big movie theater in here, real hip seating area here, and look, this house actually comes with a kitchen. I mean, you guys see what I'm saying. We're not very far from the Sandcastle house. We are priced at 1/3 of the price. So if you had the budget, would you rather live in this house for $37 million or the Sandcastle for $108 million? I think you guys know my pick. Let me know what you think down in the comments. It's hard telling if this is one of those situations where the agent is just asking some crazy high price just to gain a lot of publicity, or if the seller actually genuinely believes that his house is worth north of $100 million. But here's the deal, at least this is how I feel. And I know this might sound harsh, but I think the Sandcastle is a teardown. The seller himself said that the land value alone here is worth around $40 million. That seems to be a little generous to me based on everything else that we looked at today, but let's just roll with that and assume that the land value is worth 40 million bucks. That means that this house is worth $40 million at best. It's far more likely that the buyer that they find for this house is someone who's just interested in the land alone versus someone who's interested in this very specific style of home. This is probably gonna be one of those listings, if I had to guess, that's gonna sit on the market for a long time. He's gonna stay really firm with his price. And if that one buyer doesn't come along, then he'll probably just take it off the market and hang tight and wait until we're in a better market where he can get closer to that $100 million number. I might be being a little bit harsh here based on my own personal taste in real estate, so let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you love this house? Do you hate this house? If any of you are from La Jolla, do you think that this adds to the La Jolla coastline, or do you think that it takes away from it? I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you next week.